Okay, all right. So, we talked about the endocrine systems yesterday, which we looked at different endocrine glands and what is it that they produce. Okay, we said the two systems that function in communication and coordination of our body is what?
Nervous and endocrine.
Okay, the nervous and endocrine system. The nervous and endocrine system. Okay, those are the two systems. So we said the nervous system uses what to communicate or coordinate? Huh? Okay, they use neurons and neurotransmitters. They use neurons and neurotransmitters. Okay, while the endocrine system uses what? Hormones. Hormones. This is hormones. All right, what is the difference between paracrine and endocrine system? Paracrine and endocrine. Okay, good.
Affects the nearby tissue.
Okay, affect the nearby tissue, good.
And then the exocrine releases the hormones in the gut.
Okay, all right, through the ducts, exocrine. No, wait, endocrine. I didn't say exocrine. I said endocrine.
Oh, endocrine.
And endocrine. All right, you just good with the exocrine, you release the secretions through the ducts. While the endocrine releases their hormones or substance into body fluids. To body fluids, and they go ahead and work in a distance area. Okay, we call that target tissues. Target tissues. Right? Target tissues. All right, what is the hormone that the pineal gland secretes?
Melatonin.
Melatonin.
Sleep regulation.
Okay. All right, what happens if there is too much of melatonin?
You're jittery.
But what happens? Say, remember that
With thyroid.
what is one of these conditions that can happen if you're exposed to too much melatonin?
You can't get enough sleep.
Too much
Too much
melatonin.
sleep.
Like when we have too much sleep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, lack of energy and all that, right? You feel somehow and all that. Okay. Remember we said in the north, seasonal affective disorders, exactly. Okay, the seasonal affective disorders. The seasonal affective disorders. Okay, it's also implicated in the PMS, the premenstrual syndrome. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about actually one more. All right, for the adrenal glands, let's go to the adrenal area and all this. All right. Liver produces angiotensin, right? What is going to convert angiotensin to angiotensin 1?
Aldosterone.
What is going to convert angiotensin to angiotensin 1? What is going to convert angiotensin to angiotensin 1? Because angiotensin is produced by the liver, right? It's produced by the liver. It is produced by the liver. All right.
Oh, renin.
Okay, ready. Okay, so my question is centered around here. It's going to be ready. Okay, it's going to be ready. All right. So to convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, what do we need? ACE. What is the full word for the ACE? The full word for the ACE. Okay, angiotensin converting enzymes. So it's going to convert it to angiotensin 2, right? Angiotensin 2. All right? And we also said angiotensin 2 has a lot of effects on the body, right? One of it is it's going to stimulate the adrenal gland, okay, to produce aldosterone. What section of adrenal gland is aldosterone produced from? That we also call mineralocorticoids. What section of adrenal gland? Yes, the cortex. Yes, adrenal cortex. Yes, good, adrenal cortex. But specifically, what part of the cortex? Because we said the cortex.
Is it androgens?
No, we said the cortex is divided into three, right?
Yes.
Zona glomerulosa.
Yeah.
Okay? So the simple way to remember this, the different section of the cortex is to just say GFR. GFR. Okay? So glomerulosa, fasciculata, reticularis. So this one is mineralocorticoids. Okay? The second one, what is produced from the fasciculata? Glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids. Okay, glucocorticoids. All right, what is produced from the reticulator? The androgens. Androgens.
So
Sex hormone.
sweeter.
Exactly. Salt, sweeter. Yeah. It's like, okay, all right, baby, I see you, and go on. Okay, you all know the rest, right? All right. What is the function of aldosterone that is produced in aldosterone that is produced from the glomerulosa?
Brings in salt, blood cell, potassium.
All right, let's do it again. Brings in what?
Salt.
Okay, the salt, which is a combination of sodium and chloride, right? Then lets out what?
Potassium.
Potassium. Potassium. So if a patient has high aldosterone, that we
Conn's
call
syndrome.
Conn's syndrome, okay? So the patient might be predisposed towards electrolyte imbalance. Towards electrolytes imbalance. You guys understand what I'm saying, right? Electrolytes imbalance.
NA plus.
Okay, it's going to be, is it too low or too high Na plus?
It's going to be too high.
Too high because it's bringing so much of it in. Okay, which other one?
Potassium.
Potassium, low or high? Low. Because it's getting rid of it through the kidney. All right? So if a patient is low in potassium, what could be the effect on the heart?
Arrhythmias.
Arrhythmias. And we said arrhythmias is abnormal heartbeats. Right? Abnormal heartbeats. Arrhythmias is abnormal heartbeats. Arrhythmias is abnormal heartbeats. So arrhythmias is abnormal heartbeats. All right. So blood. We're moving into another fun part. Endocrine was really fun. Trust me. So in our systems or in our body, there is what we call the cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular systems, okay, and another one, circulatory system. Circulatory system. All right, the cardiovascular system, it involves the heart. It involves the heart and the blood vessels. Cardiovascular blood vessels. Okay, it involves, when we say cardiovascular system, it involves the heart and the blood vessels, cardio vessels. Okay, while the circulatory, we are talking about the hearts. Okay, we are talking about blood vessels, and blood, Okay, the hearts is the pump. That's the pump. The pump. So pumping, okay, pumping blood, okay, through blood vessels. Okay, pumping blood through blood vessels. Pumping blood through blood vessels. And we said we have two main types of blood vessels. What are they? Arteries and veins. Two main types of blood vessels. Arteries and veins. Okay? All right, let's run over differences between the arteries and veins.
Arteries take blood away.
Okay, the arteries, they take blood away from the hearts.
Right.
Mhm.
And the veins take blood towards the heart.
Okay, veins takes blood towards the hearts.
And they have valves.
Which one has valves?
The veins.
Veins. Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay, the arteries take the blood away from the heart, the veins.
And the veins takes the blood to the
heart.
heart.
To the heart.
Okay, to the heart.
Veins that deoxygenated blood or oxygenated blood.
Veins carries mostly deoxygenated blood, while arteries carries oxygenated blood. You guys have it, you remember? It's in your notes, right? Because we went through this some time ago. Okay?
Veins are superficial, arteries are deeper.
Okay, veins are superficial, arteries are deeper. I'm not too sure if I gave you this. Arteries we can palpate because it pulsates.
Yeah,
Pulses. I did that, right? Okay. I'm not sure if I gave it to you guys. For arteries, okay, you can palpate.
Veins are spongy to the feeling.
Okay, palpates, okay, which means they pulsate. Pulsate. That's where you can check for the pulses. Veins, they do not. Veins do not. Okay? Alright? Arteries, you can palpate, which means you put in there, you are counting the pulse, the pulsation. That's how you count the pulse rates. Okay? That's how you count the pulse rate. Veins do not. Alright, what other differences? What other differences between the arteries and the veins? We'll talk about superficial, deep, vast.
Arteries are much like tougher in structure than veins.
I'm sorry?
Arteries are more tougher in structure, or veins are more like spongy.
Oh, alright, let me help you out. Arteries are much more muscular,
Yes,
tougher,
that's-
while veins are not as muscular as the artery, because the pressure that is going through the arteries is much more than the vein. Okay, alright, good. Any other one?
The veins is slower than the arteries. It's slower with veins than the arteries.
Okay, the movement of the blood in the veins is slower than the arteries. Yes, because the pressure in the arteries is much more than the veins.
Veins are more subjective to I don't know how to say it. It's not
So-
blowing up. It's
You mean like
puncture.
rupture?
Yeah, than arteries does.
No, arteries are actually much more subject to rupture because of the pressure. More than veins. More than veins. Okay? Right?
Arteries look pink or red, veins look blue.
Okay, arteries looks pink or red. Good. Veins,
Look blue.
okay?
And then the veins are reservoir blood, they have valves, smallest.
Okay,
the
veins are usually the reservoir for blood. Okay? Alright? They have valves, arteries do not. Huh?
These veins are superficial.
Okay? Arteries are deep.
Arteries is the largest, and it's the aorta.
The largest artery is what?
The aorta, and the smallest artery is.
Arterials. Okay?
Largest vein is vena
Is
cava,
vena cava
and smallest is venulus.
is venous. Venous. Alright?
Artery has no valves.
Yes. Arteries has no valves. Say that. Alright? So the combination between the arterial and the venous.
Capillaries.
Capillaries. So what is the function of capillaries?
Transfer nutrients, gases, hormones.
Good. Right? It's a place where nutrients, gases, hormones are exchanged with the tissue. They exchange with the tissue. Okay, good. Good, good. All right? So, the circulatory system involves the heart, blood vessels, and the blood. Cardiovascular, heart, and the blood vessels. The heart is the pump, which is pumping things all around. Okay? So we said blood, it is the medium through which things are being moved through our systems, through our body. So we already said blood can be divided into what? Formed elements and plasma. Formed elements, okay, and plasma. Formed elements and plasma. Okay, formed elements and plasma. Good. Formed elements and plasma. Alright? So, Moving things around is very important, okay? Because the blood helps move things around. You're moving things around, they're helping to making sure that they're cleaning things or they're delivering things. Cleaning things, picking up weights or delivering. All right? So we said the formed elements are what?
RBCs, platelets,
Okay.
WBCs.
Red blood cells, platelets, white blood cells. Okay, what is the other name that we said we can call white blood cells? Or leukocytes. Or leukocytes. Or leukocytes. And what are the different components of leukocytes?
Monocytes.
Monocytes,
Basophils, eosinophils,
lymphocytes,
neutrophils,
basophils.
granulocytes.
All right, hang on. Monocyte, lymphocyte, basophils.
You have eosinophils,
Eosinophils,
neutrophils,
neutrophils. Right?
granulocytes.
No. The granulocytes, or what we call the agranulocytes, is just a way that we now group them. Okay? What I mean is, when we look at it under the microscope, that is a picture that it
Oh,
looks
so it's
like.
like a subdivision of the cell.
Huh?
So it's like a subdivision.
Say that again.
It's like a subdivision.
Okay, yeah, subdivision of the white blood cells, yes, but the granulocytes, the agranulocyte is a subdivision. So we're still referring to this. Okay? We're going to get into that. All right? So the plasma, we said, is what? Is the fluid portion. Is the fluid portion. Okay? So when we take a blood, we spin it, what we call a centrifuge. We spin it. We allow it to settle down for a while. You're going to see that we're going to have a whole lot of things that are settled on the bottom.
So that's really good.
Settled on the bottom. All right. This settled portion is what we call the red blood cells. Please note this. Red blood cells or hematocrites. Hematocrites or packed cell volume. Okay? Red blood cells or hematocrites or packed cell volume. Yes.
I don't know what the word is above neutrophils.
Which one?
Above neutrophils.
About the neutrophils.
EOSINO.
EOSINO. Phils, eosinophils. Okay? So, above the packed cells area, there is a layer that is in between the upper layer. This upper layer, it is the plasma, the fluid portion. Okay, the plasma or the fluid portion. So, this is the plasma. So this layer, we call it buffy coats. And this buffy coat is where we have the white blood cells. Okay? That's where we have the white blood cells. The buffy coats, that's where we have the white blood cells and platelets. White blood cells and platelets. Platelets. Alright, the buffy coat contains white blood cells and platelets. Okay? The plasma area, it is the most, that is the one that is, it is the one that we have a lot of it. Okay? So it is, the plasma area, it is 55% of the whole blood. Okay? When we say whole blood, we're talking about the whole thing. So this is 55% of the whole blood. Okay? While the buffy coat is less than 1%. Okay? While this one, it is 45% of the whole blood. Okay? All right, remember we said red blood cells, they carry what?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Okay? And I told you, I said red blood cell is like a house. It's like a house. What actually carried the oxygen, it is the structure that we call hemoglobin. 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 Okay? So the red blood cell houses hemoglobin. Alright? Now, when we do a blood sample or when we take a blood and we say let's do what we call a complete blood count, which means we are looking into the blood to check everything about the blood. We're still going to come to it. We are checking for the red blood cells, we are checking for the white blood cells. Okay? Now, the white blood cells, there is an amount that we all should have. Remember that every substance in our body, they have range. The secretary. That's how we're able to know if something is low or something is what? High, because there is a range. Okay? So those white blood cells, the individual components, the eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, neutrophils, and all that, they have a certain amount. Okay? Now, each of those components, they represent soldier that goes after a particular pathogen. Okay, for instance, neutrophils. Anytime a patient has a bacterial infection, neutrophils levels usually goes up because they are responsible for fighting bacteria. Okay, so each of them has certain amounts like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. So there is a range, which we're going to see, which means, let's say, for instance, this one is going to be like between 2 to 10. That's the normal range. So if it's less than, then which means not enough neutrophils is being produced. This is hypothetical, all right? If it's greater than, which means more of these are being produced. Could be that this patient is having bacterial infection. Okay? So when we say let's do CBC, we're going to say let's have total and differential, to include total and differential white blood cells. Okay, differential. Total and differential, which means the total and differential, we're talking about the amount of the white blood cells. Complete blood counts. Okay, we're looking at the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelets. Okay, to see the whole picture. What is the amount? Do we have a normal one, normal level, or we don't have a normal level? Everybody with me? Okay? All right, so very important. So part of the complete blood count, CBC, it is checking for red blood cells. Okay? White blood cells. So this is when we say total and differential. The differential means tell us each of the numbers for each of the subdivisions. And what is the total? Because when a patient has leukocytosis, what does that mean? What do you think is going on with that patient? Leukocytosis. I think we went over that, right? Leukocytosis. 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 Don't get misled by that L. L for the road, no. High white blood cells. High white blood cells. Okay, high white blood cells. So which could indicate that this patient there is an active infection going on in the patient. We have a lot of soldiers fighting those pathogens. Okay, and leukopenia. Low white blood cells, which can also be an indication that maybe the bone marrow are not producing enough of those formed elements. Because we said bone marrow is where all the formed elements are produced from, right? Specifically, what part of bone marrow? Red bone marrow. Okay, all right. So the total and differential, which means how much of neutrophils do we have, how much of eosinophils do we have, how much of basophils do we have, how much of lymphocytes. That's differential. Remember, I told you that each of these they fight a specific pathogen. There is one responsible for virus, one responsible for bacteria, one is responsible for allergy, for worms, and so on. Okay, which we're going to see. All right. So the red blood cell is like a house that has the hemoglobin. All right? So, the percentage of the red blood cells or hematocrits or packed cell volume, it is 45% of the total whole blood, of the whole blood. Okay? Of the whole blood. All right. Since we said the red blood cells is like a house which houses the hemoglobin, then we have to find out how much of hemoglobin do we have. Because if hemoglobin is low, what do we call that? Hemoglobin or red blood cells, if it's low, what do we call it? Anemia. That is one of the reasons that we give patients to patients that are pregnant, say all those prenatal vitamins, take iron, take folic acid, take vitamin C, and all those. Why? Because we need them to make hemoglobin in the bone marrow. Okay, the house is the red blood cells. Hemoglobin is actually what is carrying the oxygen. Okay, so when the oxygen combines with the hemoglobin, okay, HB plus, if HB represents hemoglobin plus oxygen, we call it oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Okay? Oxyhemoglobin. Now, some percentage of the carbon dioxide is also being carried by hemoglobin. Some percentage of carbon dioxide is also being carried by hemoglobin. Alright? So when carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin, HB plus CO2, we call that carbaminohemoglobin. Hemoglobin, okay? Because hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen, primarily to some extent. It also carry carbon dioxide. So there are levels of hemoglobin in our body that is accepted for both male and female. In female, it's much lower. Why do you think it's going to be much lower? In female, menstruations, okay? During menstruation, there are some blood cells that are lost. Okay? So to find the amount of hemoglobin in a red blood cells, okay, let's say with the results for the complete blood count shows that the red blood cell amount is 40%, because it's going to be in percentage, remember? Red blood cells hematocrit is 45% normally. Okay, so let's say it is 40% after we centrifuge the blood. So how do we know how much hemoglobin? Because that's the thing that is carrying the oxygen. So how do we know that? All you just gotta do is divide by 3. That's gonna give you the hemoglobin. All right. So this one is gonna be 13.3 grams per DL of hemoglobin. So this is how we're gonna measure if it's within the normal range. If it's not within the normal range, then we're going to say this patient probably have what? Anemia. Probably have anemia. Okay? Probably have anemia. Alright? With the anemia, which means this patient cannot move oxygen around and no oxygen delivered to the tissue. What's going to happen?
Muscle deterioration or brain damage?
I mean, a whole lot of things can happen. No oxygen delivered to the tissue, which means there's going to be ischemia. Okay, if it's temporary, we call it ischemia. If it's permanent, what do we call it? Which means not enough blood is getting to the tissue. Temporary cut of blood supply to the tissue, no oxygen being delivered temporarily, we call it ischemia. The permanent one, what do we call it? The permanent, when the blood is totally cut off from a tissue, what do we call it? Infarction. Infarction, exactly. Good, thank you. Infarction. Okay, infarction. Okay, infarction. So if packed cell volumes, or red blood cell, remember, packed cell volume, if packed cell PCV is 30%, what is the amount of hemoglobin there?
1.5.
10 grams per DL. 10 grams per DL. Remember, you've got to divide by 3.
Always.
Always. You divide by 3. That's how you calculate the amount of hemoglobin that is present in a red blood cells. Okay? Alright, 30 divided by 3 is not 10 points, it's 10. Right? Right? Because if it's 33, it's going to be worse. 11. Just divide by 3. Okay? Alright. Everybody got a good overview of that. So let's move with the slide. It's not your time for break. Alright? So, hematology. It is a way through which we can study the blood. Alright? The functions of the circulatory system to transport, protection. Transport, we are moving oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrient, waste, hormones, stem cells. We're moving them all around. Okay, we're moving them all around. Protection, because of the formed elements, the white blood cells. They're able to what? To protect us. They're able to protect us because of the white blood cells. Right? So they can limit the spread of infections, destroy microorganisms. Even our body can destroy cancer cells. It is only when we are overwhelmed that we feel it. Right? Get rid of toxins, initiate clotting. Alright? What part of the formed elements helps with clotting? Alright? So let's do an overview of that. I don't think I've done that. I think I have, but let's do it again. Alright, the formed elements. Okay, we got platelets. We got white blood cells. Okay, we got red blood cells. Okay, the platelets helps with clotting. Because anytime you and I have a little bit of injury to our body, we should be able to arrest bleeding. We should be able to arrest bleeding. Okay? The ability to arrest bleeding is carried out by the platelets. Okay? So we call this arresting of bleeding. Arresting of bleeding is called hemostasis. Hemostasis. Arresting of bleeding is called hemostasis. We call it hemostasis. Arresting of bleeding. Okay, it's called hemostasis. Okay, hemostasis. And we said that if the body is producing too much of platelets, what would be the risk factor? What would be the risk? Huh? Blood clots. Which means unnecessary what? Unnecessary blood clots.
Lupus is one.
Huh?
What about lupus? That, yeah.
No, lupus is different. Lupus is a connective tissue disorder, autoimmune. Okay? Alright? So unnecessary blood clots. Alright? White blood cells. They are what? They are the soldiers. Okay? Defend the body against pathogen. Defend the body against pathogens. Alright? Red blood cells moves oxygen around. Oxygen around and some carbon dioxide also. Okay? So, low oxygen in the blood is what we call hypoxia. Hypoxia. Okay? That's hypoxia. Low oxygen in the blood. Hypoxia. Okay? Now, do we have a normal one, normal level, or we don't have a normal level? Everybody with me? Okay? All right, so very important. So part of the complete blood count, CBC, it is checking for red blood cells. Okay? White blood cells. So this is when we say total and differential. The differential means tell us each of the numbers for each of the subdivisions. And what is the total? Because when a patient has leukocytosis, what does that mean? What do you think is going on with that patient? Leukocytosis. I think we went over that, right? Leukocytosis.
Low white blood cell.
Huh?
Low white blood cell.
Leukocytosis.
Low leukocytes.
Leukocytosis. Don't get misled by that L. L for low, no.
High blood.
High white blood cells. High white blood cells. Okay? High white blood cells. So which could indicate that this patient there is an active infection going on in the patient. We have a lot of soldiers fighting those pathogens. Okay? And leukopenia. Low white blood cells, which can also be an indication that maybe the bone marrow are not producing enough of those formed elements. Because we said bone marrow is where all the formed elements are produced from, right? Specifically, what part of bone marrow? Red bone marrow. Okay, all right. So, the total and differential, which means how much of neutrophils do we have, how much of eosinophils do we have, how much of basophils do we have, how much of lymphocytes, that's differential. Remember I told you that each of these, they fight a specific pathogen. There is one responsible for virus, one responsible for bacteria, one responsible for allergy, for worms, and so on. Okay, which we're going to see. All right. So the red blood cell is like a house that has the hemoglobin. All right. So the percentage of the red blood cells or hematocrits or packed cell volume, it is 45% of the total whole blood, of the whole blood. Okay, of the whole blood. All right. Since we said the red blood cells is like a house which houses the hemoglobin, then we have to find out how much of hemoglobin do we have. Because if hemoglobin is low, what do we call that? Hemoglobin or red blood cells is low, what do we call it? Anemia. That is one of the reasons that we give patients to patients that are pregnant. Say all those prenatal vitamins, take iron, take folic acid, take vitamin C, and all those. Why? Because we need them to make hemoglobin in the bone marrow. Okay, the house is the red blood cells. Hemoglobin is actually what is carrying the oxygen. Okay, so when the oxygen combines with the hemoglobin, okay, HB plus, if HB represents hemoglobin plus oxygen, we call it oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Okay? Oxyhemoglobin. Now, some percentage of the carbon dioxide is also being carried by hemoglobin. Some percentage of carbon dioxide is also being carried by hemoglobin. All right? So when carbon dioxide combines with hemoglobin, Hb plus CO2, we call that carbaminohemoglobin. Hemoglobin, okay? Because hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen, primarily to some extent. It also carry carbon dioxide. So there are levels of hemoglobin in our body that is accepted for both male and female. In female, it's much lower. Why do you think it's going to be much lower? In female, menstruations, okay? During menstruation, there are some blood cells that are lost. Okay? So to find the amount of hemoglobin in a red blood cells, okay, let's say with the results for the complete blood count shows that the red blood cell amount is 40%, because it's going to be in percentage, remember? Red blood cells hematocrit is 45% normally. Okay, so let's say it is 40% after we centrifuge the blood. So how do we know how much hemoglobin? Because that's the thing that is carrying the oxygen. So how do we know that? All you just gotta do is divide by 3. That's gonna give you the hemoglobin. All right. So this one is gonna be 13.3 grams per DL of hemoglobin. So this is how we're gonna measure if it's within the normal range. If it's not within the normal range, then we're going to say this patient probably have what? Anemia. Probably have anemia. Okay? Probably have anemia. Alright? With the anemia, which means this patient cannot move oxygen around and no oxygen delivered to the tissue. what's going to happen?
Muscle deterioration or brain damage.
I mean, a whole lot of things can happen. No oxygen delivered to the tissue, which means there's going to be ischemia. Okay, if it's temporary, we call it ischemia. If it's permanent, what do we call it? Which means not enough blood is getting to the tissue. Temporary cut of blood supply to the tissue. No oxygen being delivered temporarily, we call it ischemia. The permanent one, what do we call it? The permanent. When the blood is totally cut off from a tissue, what do we call it? Infarction. Infarction, exactly. Good, thank you. Infarction. Okay, infarction. Okay, infarction. So if packed cell volumes, or red blood cell, remember, packed cell volume, if packed cell PCB is 30%, what is the amount of hemoglobin there?
1.5.
10 grams per deal. 10 grams per deal. Remember, you've got to divide by 3.
Always.
Always. You divide by 3. That's how you calculate the amount of hemoglobin that is present in a red blood cells. Okay? Alright, 30 divided by 3 is not 10 points, it's 10. Right? Right? Because if it's 33, it's going to be worse. 11. Just divide by 3. Okay? Alright. Everybody got a good overview of that. So let's move with the slide. It's not your time for break. Alright? So, hematology. It is a way through which we can study the blood. Alright? The functions of the circulatory system to transport, protection. Transport, we're moving oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrient, waste, hormones, stem cells. We're moving them all around. Okay, we're moving them all around. Protection, because of the formed elements, the white blood cells, they're able to what? To protect us. They're able to protect us because of the white blood cells. Right? So they can limit the spread of infections, destroy microorganisms. Even our body can destroy cancer cells. It is only when we are overwhelmed then we feel it. Right? Get rid of toxins, initiate clotting. Alright? What part of the formed elements helps with clotting? Alright? So let's do an overview of that. I don't think I've done that. I think I have, but let's do it again. Alright, the formed elements. Okay, we got platelets. We got white blood cells. Okay, we got red blood cells. Okay, the platelets helps with clotting. Because anytime you and I have a little bit of injury to our body, we should be able to arrest bleeding. We should be able to arrest bleeding. Okay? The ability to arrest bleeding is carried out by the platelets. Okay? So we call this arresting of bleeding. Arresting of bleeding is called hemostasis. Hemostasis. Arresting of bleeding is called hemostasis. We call it hemostasis. Arresting of bleeding. Okay, it's called hemostasis. Okay, hemostasis. And we said that if the body is producing too much of platelets, what would be the risk factor? What would be the risk? Huh? Blood clots. Which means unnecessary what? Unnecessary blood clots. Huh? No, lupus is different. Lupus is a connective tissue disorder, autoimmune. Okay? Alright? So unnecessary blood clots. Alright? White blood cells, they are what? They are the soldiers. Okay? Defend the body against pathogen. Defend the body against pathogens. Alright? Red blood cells moves Oxygen around. Oxygen around and some carbon dioxide also. Okay? So, low oxygen in the blood is what we call hypoxia. Hypoxia. Okay? That's hypoxia. Low oxygen in the blood. Hypoxia. Okay? Alright? So those are the functions of the formed elements. So the plasma is fluid. Bless you. The fluid where things are dissolved and all that. Okay? Alright. The other function of circulatory system is regulation. What do we mean by regulation? It helps with fluid balance. Alright? Also helps to stabilize the pH of ECF. What is ECF? Extracellular fluid. Right? And also helps with temperature control. That's what temperature control. Okay? So stabilizes pH of ECF and temperature control, fluid balance. Because fluid balance is very important. And also having a normal pH is also very important, right? Why would that be important? To have a normal pH of the blood? To prevent acidosis or alkalosis. What would be the effect of acidosis or alkalosis on body? What can be? Can destroy the body and all that. But what is the one main thing that always helps us to make sure that our body system is always going on very well? Yes, homeostasis, I know. But there is one component in which when you eat, you break it down, just making sure that the metabolic processes are going on. Okay, what is the thing that we said is responsible to always make sure that things are going on? Speed up the rate of process of things. Enzymes. And enzymes are what? Enzymes are what? Proteins, majorly. So if there is high pH or low pH, they can get denatured and destroyed. So which means when we eat, we cannot digest the food. We're in trouble. I'm telling you. Alright? When we eat, we cannot digest the food, we're in trouble because too much acid, too much base and all that. Alright? So we said in order to keep the pH in check, what is the thing that always helps? What is the general name that we call the thing that always helps to keep the pH in check? That always helps to keep the pH in check. Which means, if no, I'm not going to allow you to go to acid level. I'm not going to allow you to go to base. Huh? I'm not allow you to go towards the acid level. I'm not allow you buffers. Buffers. Okay? Buffers, exactly. Alright, and buffers. Can you name an example of buffer? Sodium bicarbonate? Proteins? And phosphates. At least some of those. Alright? So, this guy in the blood is making sure that they're moving all those things around. Alright, let's do one more slide. We're going to break. Adults have about 4 to 6 liters of blood. 4 to 6 liters of blood. And blood is a fluid connective tissue. Blood is a fluid connective tissue. Remember we talked about connective tissues, right? Right? What are the types of tissues that we have? Epithelia.
Nervous.
Connective. Nervous. Huh? Say that again. Epithelia, connective, nervous, muscle tissue. All right. So connective. What is the thing that we said about connective? Their function, connective tissues. Don't worry, guys. I told you. I asked a lot of questions. This is the drill. Training the brain. The brain. Remember, the more repetition, the more it's sinking in, the more you're getting to understand it. All right. So what are some of the functions of connective tissue that we say?
They transport substances.
They transport substances, yes. Some of the functions of
They
connective
get
tissue.
rid of the unneeded stuff.
Huh?
They get rid of the unneeded stuff too.
Step out of the transports, what's going on? Transporting, they're delivering, they're also picking up waste. Okay, I give it to you. Good. What else?
Support.
Supports. Anything else? For connective tissue. Transport, supports. Part of transport, delivering and picking up waste. Anything else?
They control the
Protection.
Protection. The protection has to do with the white blood cells. Guys, I'm just asking, what is the function of blood, right? Because we just said blood is a what? Is a fluid connective tissue. Okay? And part of connective tissue is what? What is an example of connective tissue? Blood is one. Any examples of connective tissue? More, huh?
Bone.
Bones, bone, cartilage. What is the other thing that connects muscle to bone? Muscle to bone, yeah. Tendons, ligaments, all right, because they support and all that. Okay, all right, guys, let's go break. So we said an adult has 4 to 6 liters of blood, and we already said that a liquid connective tissue is blood. All right, the plasma and the formed element. The plasma is the fluid. It looks clear and light yellow. We'll talk about the formed elements. So, and we've also talked about the different types of formed elements. Okay. Now, the reason why we call neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, granulocytes is because, let's flip to, yes, it is because if you look at it, all of this, something like look like pale dot structures, they are all called the granules. Granules. Okay, so some of these white blood cells has granules in their cytoplasm. These big stuffs, those are the nucleus. Those are the nucleus. And the nucleus, to some of them, it is what we call, it is multi-lobed. 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 Okay? In the sense that it could be a bilobed or multi-lobed. It means it's not just one nucleus. They are like nucleus, or nuclei joined together. Nuclei joined together. Okay? So the one that has the granules are the neutrophil, eosinophils, and basophils. All right, let's take a look. Eosinophils has got something look like sprinkles. Those are the granules. Okay, so that's the eosinophils. The neutrophils also has it also. All right, basophil. Where are you? Okay, and the basophils also. Okay, has something like granules. Okay, so neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, we also call them granulocytes. It's just because looking at it under the microscope, they have something that looks like sprinkles, sprinkled in their cytoplasm. We call it granules. All right. So neutrophil, eosinophils, basophils, those are the granulocytes. And the one that doesn't have the granules, without granules, we call it agranulocytes. Agranulocytes. So it's just the rest of the two, the lymphocytes and monocytes. Okay, so look at monocytes. There is nothing in the cytoplasm. It's clear. Okay, it doesn't have it. And the lymphocyte also, look at it. Nothing in there. Okay, so when we take a blood film. You guys, how many people have done microbiology here? Did you guys look under the blood? Take a sample of blood, smear it, and look under the microscope? Okay. All right, it's okay. We have a blood slide upstairs that we're going to take a look. All right. So when we take a little bit of prick, we smear it. Okay, we prepare it. We look at it under the microscope. We can see majorly what we're going to see majorly are the erythrocyte. Okay, they're like biconcave, like curved this way, erythrocytes. Okay. Then a little bit of something that looks like much more tiny. Those are the platelets. Okay? So the white blood cells now have their own characteristics appearance. Okay, for instance, look at the lymphocyte. Lymphocyte has a large nucleus. Monocytes almost have something like a little bit of curved nucleus. Neutrophils has like 3 nuclei, 1, 2, 3, multi-lobed. Okay? Eosinophil, like bilobed. So that's how we're able to differentiate them. We're able to differentiate them based on the granules, the nucleus appearance. Okay? The granules of the nuclear appearance. So we're able to differentiate them. Look at neutrophils. Neutrophils also. It's like 1, 2, 3, like 3 nuclei. Okay? But something that is most conspicuous is the erythrocytes and the platelets, all these tiny fragments. So we see this on the blood film. We spare it on the slide, we take a look under the microscope and see a lot of this. All right? Now, when we look at it under the microscope, let's say in the typical lab, if there are a lot of neutrophils, a lot of neutrophils out there, that is the way we count them. Okay, that's going to give us an idea that this patient might be suffering from bacterial infection. Okay? As I said, each of these represents, each of these fight against a specific pathogen. You guys know what a pathogen is? What is pathogen?
Disease-causing organisms.
Okay, they're disease-causing organisms. Those are pathogens. Okay? All right, everybody clear?
Dr. O,
Yes.
I have a question. You know how, I'm not sure one time in a lab that, you know, the 86, whatever the marker disease cannot donate blood and stuff like that. Well, if you have a kid, has his blood carries your blood or he has his own blood?
Okay,
Or he carry them? You know,
And they are telling you that you should donate blood to the kid because you say you don't donate blood,
no,
period.
my son.
Okay.
Does he have a trace of it in his blood too?
Okay, we're going to talk about that now. Usually, the blood trace comes from the dad. Usually. Okay, usually. But I've actually had I've actually know of someone, okay, that when they did the blood, it doesn't match with the dad. And that's the dad. Okay? Yeah, that's the dad. So, but usually carries from the dad. All right. So we've looked at the centrifuge. We've talked about it. The formed elements and the white blood cells and the red blood cells. The buffer coat is between the packed cell, which is erythrocytes or hematocrites, and the plasma. I said the buffer coats. We have the leukocytes and what? And platelets on the buffer coats. Okay. Now the plasma. The plasma, it is the remainder of the whole blood, the remainder, okay? And this is where we have a mixture of water, proteins, nutrients, electrolytes, nitrogenous waste, hormones, and gases. Those are what? Those are the things that the fluid is moving around, right? Those are the things that the fluid is moving around, okay? All right. So let's look at the plasma in detail right now. The plasma in detail. The plasma in detail. So we said blood is divided into what? Formed elements and plasma. So the plasma is the liquid portion. Okay? Now, when we take the blood clots and solid, when they are removed, okay, let's put it this way. The fluid portion, okay, that's the plasma. All right, serum. It is when we take out the blood clots or solid. When we take it out, the leftover is what we call the serum. Okay, so serum is plasma minus blood clots. Now, these blood clots, we also call it fibrinogen. Fibrinogen. Okay, because what makes blood clots? They are fused fibrinogens. Okay, minus blood clots minus solid, whatever solid we have in there. Okay, so the leftover, it is serum. Does that make sense? Serum. So serum is much more clear than plasma. Much more clear than plasma. All right? Now, in the blood, all right, let's go back to our concept of osmosis. Our concept of osmosis. You guys still remember osmolarity? Tonicity. Okay, osmolarity, tonicity. All right? So we said osmolarity is what? Amount of what? Osmolarity. Osmolarity, when we talk about osmolarity of blood, what determines osmolarity?
Amount of solutes.
The amount of solutes, yes, the amount of solutes in the blood. The amount of solutes in the blood. Okay, amount of solutes. Amounts of solutes in the blood. Okay, now to determine how much, how little, and all that of the solutes is what we call the tonicity. Okay, to determine how much of the solutes, okay, we call that tonicity. All right, you guys remember hypertonic, isotonic, and hypotonic, right? Solution A. Hypotonic solution means what? Hypotonic solution, huh?
There's less.
There's less what? Solute compared to? There's less solute in the solution. Yes, I agree. But compared to what? Compared to?
Intracellular. Hypertonic is more solutes inside of the cell.
Inside of?
The cell.
More solute in a solution compared to the solute in a cell. Everybody gets that? Right, because compared to, that's why we're able to compare that this is one is too much compared to this. Okay? Alright? So when we place a cell is in hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution. Which means the amount of solute in the solution is more than what? More than inside the cell. So what's going to happen to the cell? It's going to shrink. Why?
They have more inside than what's outside. So what we're going to do?
Say that again.
They have more inside the cell than what is outside.
Say that again.
So there's more.
There's no outside than what's inside.
There's more outside.
Than what's inside.
Exactly. More solutes on the outside than what is on the inside, right? As a result, what's going to happen? Huh? It shrink. Why? Why will it shrink?
Because it's losing all the water. The water's moving outside.
The water is moving outside of the cell into the solution. So it shrinks. Exactly. So when we call that the suctioning power of it is suctionated. Okay? That is osmotic pressure. Right? You guys remember that? Osmotic pressure. Okay? So what did we say about the tissues and blood vessels, or capillaries and tissues? Let me draw it. So because we're talking about a cell, right? What makes up a tissue? What makes up a tissue? Cells. Okay? So let's say we have this muscle right here. Okay? And we have a lot of capillaries that are surrounding it. A lot of capillaries. Okay, a lot of capillaries. So on this other end, we have the artery. Alright, I hope this might work. So that we can make it much more. Okay, so the blood is coming. These are the capillaries. Because this is the venous and this is the arterials. So this is the tissue that they're going to exchange things with. Alright? So the tissue is made up of the cell, right? So if we have, say, 10 grams of salt here, and we have 20 grams of salt in the capillaries, it's going to move into the capillaries, right? Because the salt is the solute, right? Okay, so the salt is the solute, all right? So, but for us to keep things in here, okay, the solute has to be a little bit higher than here, right? What about if it's the opposite? We have less solute here, so like 5 grams. Where is the water going to move into? Into the muscle. So, which means we're going to have fluid in the muscle. What do we call that? Fluid in tissue. Edema.
That's it, that's right.
Edema. Everybody understand that? Okay? So because less solute is here, more solute is here. Fluid moves here. What is that process of fluid moving from a place where we have it more to where we have it less? What do we call that process? Osmosis. Alright? Now, for us to have a clean tissue, not full of fluid, the osmolarity here has to be a little bit higher than the tissue. So that constantly fluid are in the circulation, in the blood vessels. Alright? So we said osmolarity is the amount of solutes. And when we talked about this, we said the most abundant solutes in the blood is what? The most abundant solutes in the blood is what? I think we talked about it. Yes, I remember we talked about it. The most abundant. The most abundant solutes in the blood, which helps to maintain the osmolarity is what? The most abundant. Huh? I'm sorry? No. Albumin. Yeah, you found it right. Yeah. We're talking it's albumin. Because it's a protein. A type of protein is albumin. And it's even up here too. Okay? So, talking about plasma proteins is very important in the sense that the most abundant one, which is the albumin, helps to contribute to the osmolarity of the blood. As a result, helps to keep blood within the circulation so that we don't have edema. Albumin. Alright, maintain the osmolarity. Albumin. That is why when we have a lot of here, a lot of it's here, more than here, fluid are constantly being cleaned out of the tissue. Okay? And the nature did it in such a way that is such amazing. Even despite the fact that we might have let's pull it back. We might have say like 15 grams of solutes here. Even the nature still failed in the sense of not being able to pull a lot of fluid out of this tissue. Okay? But the nature now made another way through which the excess or the leftover fluid in the tissue can be pulled. So that constantly, you and I, we don't have our body that you press this way and it forms a dimple, the pits and edema.
Right.
Okay? We don't have it. Alright? There are certain issues that can happen that can cause us to have pits and edema or fluid in the tissue. Alright? Let's look at it. The most abundant is the albumin. And this albumin, the sources are either you take a lot of proteins, excuse me, or the liver is producing them. So which means when a patient has liver failure, okay, or deficiency in dietary protein, or when there is heart failure, or when there is kidney failure. So which means this can offset the movement of water from the tissue to the plasma. I mean to the blood vessel. As a result, fluid now moves into the tissue. All right, let's look at it. This is 10 grams, this is 50 grams of solid. When there is less, say like 5 grams, where does fluid moves into? Right?
Wait, why would it go into the tissue if there's less out of the tissue?
All right, good. This is what? This is the capillaries, right?
Right.
Less solid here,
Right.
and we have more solid here.
So wouldn't it go out of the tissue?
Okay, I need people to help me out too. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit confused too. I need help too. All right, what do you think? Can somebody help us out? Because we have a less solid here than here. And according to law of osmosis, where is the water going to move into?
Muscle goes into the
To
muscle.
the muscle. Why?
Because there's more solids in the muscle, not more water. So it's
Oh, so
trying
it's
to
backwards.
balance.
Gotcha.
It's trying to
Please
balance.
repeat. Excellent. Repeat it again. Repeat it
So-
again. There is more.
Solids in the muscle, not water. So the water is going to try and move to where there's more solids.
So you changed the numbers from being
Exactly. Because this is 5 grams and this is 10 grams.
solids, not water.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So again, remember we said osmosis, we can define it in a 2 way. We can say is the movement of water where we have more of what to where we have less of what? More of water, number one. So where we have less of water, right? Or where is the movement of water from where we have less of solids to where we have what? More of solids. Does that make sense? Right. Okay? So anything that is going to contribute to losing solids in the blood vessels is going to allow fluid to move into the tissue. Anything. So which means the liver failure, no, not so much of proteins as the produce. Okay? That's number one. Number two, if I'm not eating enough protein, dietary protein, then my solids is going to be low. All right? Number three, what about situation that is forcing too much fluid into the blood vessels? If I have any situation that is forcing too much fluid into this blood vessels, for instance, if I'm drinking too much of fluid, free fluid, if I want to drink like water contest, I'm doing, let's say who can drink 5 bottles of water, 10 bottles, I keep drinking free fluid. You know that people died from what we call circulatory overload, from excess water. Free. Why? Because they are drinking too much water, and the water, they have a lot of water